Welcome to yet again 3 cold cases that will make you question humanity's existence, the complex mind of a killer, and the insanity within their minds that persuades them into doing cruel and sinister acts. From the horrifying murder of an elderly couple, the abusive tales of his wife, and the underlying jealousy that lurked beneath the house of the Lynn's family. Prepare yourself as we submerge you into the dark world of crimes. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
In their tranquil farm, an old couple savored the simple joys of retirement, their love a beacon of warmth in the quiet countryside. But fate dealt a cruel hand as they were both tragically taken from this world by an unknown assailant. Now their farmhouse stands empty, echoing with the memories of a life once lived. The fields they tended together lie fallow, a silent testament to the love that bound them, even in death. This is the terrible story of Jack and Linda Myers. Come and join us as we unravel this horrific crime. A family member used to drive 4-year-old Johnny Huffman to daycare, but one morning he ran to school, wearing only his pajamas and a pair of boots. An hour late, he came to his daycare with his shirt drenched in blood and told his elders this horrible news about his great-grandparents, and described to his caretaker that he found them melting. Troubled by the bloody shirt and with his information, his caretaker quickly called 911 and assisted Johnny. What happened to Johnny's great-grandparents? Who was the culprit of this horrifying crime scene? And most especially, what was the motive behind this terrible act? Jack Myers, a hard-working 51-year-old farmer, and his devoted 55-year-old wife Linda lived a quiet yet fulfilling life on their expansive 40-acre farm nestled in the serene countryside of Darke County, Ohio. Although they both had children with different partners, their days were still filled with the rhythmic cadence of farm chores, the aromatic scent of freshly baked pizzas from their local shop, and the warmth of family bonds nurtured over decades. The Myerses were not only stewards of their farm, but also pillars of their community. Beyond tending to their land, they managed a bustling pizza shop that had become a beloved gathering spot for locals craving delicious pies and friendly conversation. In addition to their culinary endeavors, the Myerses supplemented their income by renting out residential properties, extending their hospitality beyond the confines of their farm. Central to their lives was their role as guardian for their 4-year-old great-grandson, Johnny. Johnny was the only other person living in the house. His great-grandparents had custody because his mother was a teenager and too young to care for him. Despite the challenges of age, Jack and Linda embraced their responsibility with unwavering love and dedication, cherishing each moment spent nurturing the young boy's growth and development. Tragically, on the fateful morning of March 27, 2003, the tranquility of the Myers' idyllic existence was shattered by a heinous act of violence. In the dead of night, while the couple slumbered peacefully in their bed, a malevolent intruder breached the sanctity of their home and unleashed a barrage of gunfire. Jack and Linda were mercilessly gunned down at point-blank range, their lives extinguished in an instant. The morning light revealed a scene of unimaginable horror as young Johnny stumbled upon the grisly aftermath of the massacre. Covered in blood and trembling with fear, he fled to the safety of a nearby church daycare, where he tearfully recounted the harrowing ordeal to shocked caretakers. When asked by the officials, Johnny told the police that he didn't hear any loud noises all night, like gunshots. Only when he woke up, he discovered his great-grandparents in a pool of blood. He even tried attempting to wipe away the blood with a clean cloth. After that, he informed them that the amount of blood was too much, and that there was nothing he could do about it. Word of the unspeakable tragedy spread like wildfire through the tight-knit community, leaving friends, neighbors, and law enforcement reeling with disbelief and outrage. Responding with urgency, authorities descended upon the Myers farm, their grim task compounded by the sheer brutality of the crime scene. Evidence of a calculated assault began to emerge as detectives meticulously combed through the shattered remnants of the Myers' once tranquil home. A removed window in the basement and severed phone lines bore witness to the intruder's methodical preparations, while traces of blood in Johnny's room served as chilling reminders of the killer's sinister presence. Johnny's eyewitness account provided a crucial lead, as he recounted encountering a figure he described as a green monster during the night, a detail that would later become a focal point of the investigation. Meanwhile, Eyewitness reports of an unfamiliar minivan parked near the Myers residence in the pre-dawn hours hinted at the presence of an outsider with nefarious intent. As the investigation unfolded, suspicion inevitably turned inward, focusing on family members entangled in unresolved conflicts. Andrew Hoffman, the biological father of the 4-year-old Johnny, initially drew scrutiny due to a custody dispute with Linda, but his alibi proved airtight, placing him far from the scene of the crime at the time of the murders. Greg, the 25-year-old son of Jack Myers, was another family member harboring bitterness to his father. He was going through a divorce and had financial issues. He had some drug and alcohol issues, which was why he was missing work. He contacted his father for assistance since he was going to lose his house to foreclosure. Rather than just saying, "No, I'm not helping you," he said something like, "Greg, stay off the drugs and alcohol, go to work every day, pay your bills, then maybe you can save your house." Greg seemed to be frustrated with his father's reply and found himself on the precipice of financial ruin, his desperation reaching a fever pitch in the months leading up to the crime. Moreover, officials also found out that Greg was entitled to inherit his father's farmhouse in the event of his passing. He then denied any involvement in the deaths of his father and stepmother when questioned by the police.
I've seen enough of this stuff that, as far as like Law and Order and stuff, Court TV, that family's always the first suspect.
However, reports from acquaintances painted a damning picture, alleging Greg's simmering resentment and expressed desire to harm his father, a sentiment further corroborated by his ominous inquiry about acquiring a firearm. Physical evidence further solidified the case against Greg, as receipts for ammunition and clothing purchases matching the intruder's attire surfaced in the aftermath of the killings. A Walmart transaction log revealed Greg's purchase of ammunition and masking tape mere days before the murders, while eyewitness testimony placed him in possession of attire mirroring the description provided by young Johnny. The discovery of discarded evidence, including the murder weapon, a shotgun with its serial number obliterated, served as the final nail in Greg's proverbial coffin. Arrested and charged with aggravated assault and 2 counts of aggravated murder, Greg faced a daunting trial, his fate hanging in the balance as the legal proceedings unfolded. Despite the offer of a plea deal that would spare him the death penalty, Greg defiantly opted to stand trial, placing his faith in the hands of a jury tasked with unraveling the tangled web of evidence and testimony. After a grueling trial that laid bare the depths of human depravity, the jury returned with a swift verdict, condemning Greg to a lifetime behind bars without the possibility of parole. Though spared the ultimate punishment, Greg's fate was sealed, a stark reminder of the consequences wrought by greed, resentment, and unchecked violence. In the aftermath of the tragedy, young Johnny, though scarred by the trauma of witnessing his great-grandparents' untimely demise, found solace in the embrace of his loving mother, Amber. With the support of counseling and the unwavering devotion of his family, Johnny embarked on a journey of healing, his resilience serving as a testament to the indomitable human spirit in the face of unspeakable tragedy. Meanwhile, Greg's appeal for a new trial on grounds of unfair jury selection was swiftly denied, ensuring that justice would be served for the lives cruelly snuffed out on that fateful March morning. Incarcerated within the confines of the Marion Correctional Institution, Greg serves out his sentence, a sobering reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring pursuit of justice in its wake. The case of the angelic-faced sadist Jordan Worth. Not only is it difficult to maintain statistics on victims of domestic abuse, but it is also nearly impossible because many people choose not to ask for assistance out of a desire to appear foolish. Sometimes years can pass while a person is abused, beaten, and humiliated, and certain details come to light only after the damage is done. In other words, a lot of these numbers are based on dead people. In 2018, the case of Jordan Worth, a young English woman, garnered national headlines and was noteworthy in a number of respects, if not unique. First, the myth that men are inherently violent, dictatorial, and abusive in relationships was disproved by this frail individual with an angelic look. She became the first woman in British history to receive a real prison sentence for domestic abuse and coercive control because, up until that point, only men had been imprisoned on similar accusations. This is because they are trivially stronger physically. Thankfully, this story did not end in disaster, but it is still puzzling that a young mother of 2 children nearly killed her heir's father through torture. This is the terrible story of Alex Skeel. Come and join us as we unravel this horrific crime. For most people, their first love usually occurs when they are still in school or in college. Alex Skeel, a 28-year-old guy from Stewartby in Bedfordshire, England, experienced this same fate. But when it was revealed that he had been subjected to horrifying abuse by Jordan Worth, the woman who claimed to love him, many were shocked and in disbelief. It would take a near-death experience for her heinous misdeeds to finally come to light. Alex Skeel's life did not start off smoothly. Along with Luke, his twin brother, were both born on August 17, 1995, 2 weeks early. Weighing just 2 pounds, he had to spend some time in intensive care and had multiple surgeries when he was still a baby. After making a full recovery, he and his brother were hired as kid models by the well-known grocery chain Asday, which was a really nice way to cap off an otherwise turbulent event. Growing up, Alex became deeply in love with football, or soccer as it is known in the United States, and he would play it with his buddies most weekends. Alex was 16 years old in June 2012 and a student at Bedford College in Bedford, England. He would meet fellow student Jordan Worth, who was majoring in fine arts at this location. That June 3rd, Alex made the decision to go to the college where one of his friends was doing a play in order to encourage him. Jordan came because one of her friends was performing in the play, and she and Alex quickly struck up a conversation. Although Alex had never been particularly interested in women, he sensed a connection with Jordan and soon found himself falling deeply in love. Jordan's involvement in him surprised and excited him, and at the time he characterized her as self-assured, compassionate, and loving. They all got along when he presented her to his friends. However, Jordan stood out from the others in the group as being quiet and reserved. In any case, they welcomed Jordan for her true self, and before long she belonged to the group just as much as the others. Later on, when Alex had welcomed Jordan into his family, he began to notice a few oddities in her conduct. Jordan would make remarks about his attire, occasionally mentioning that she didn't like the color, that it didn't fit him, and that she believed he should be wearing something different. In addition, she would comment on other things, such as his hairdo, proposing that he wear it in a way that she liked. At first, he didn't think much of it, but he adjusted a few of her suggestions because he wanted to impress her. All relationships include compromises, after all. However, it must be acknowledged that there were some really odd issues to compromise on, and frequently, there was no compromise at all. Jordan seemed to be asking for these things and providing nothing in return. When Alex and Jordan were alone, he felt that things were different, and even though he had also noticed some weird conduct on Jordan's side, he was certain that there was nothing to worry about. Alex's parents also began to notice that Jordan was playing mind games, and they attempted to warn him. And so we arrive at August 17, 2013. In honor of Alex and Luke's 18th birthdays, their mother hired a caterer and extended an invitation to all of their friends to join them in celebrating. However, Jordan said she would not be attending the party, end of story, as soon as she learned that a certain family friend's daughter would be there. But in the end, Alex was able to persuade her to reconsider. But later that evening, Jordan and the girl, who was only 15 at the time, got into a fight during which Jordan used some really foul language against her. In general, Jordan was not happy that Alex was hanging around with other people. All she wanted was him, and nothing else would suffice. Despite Alex's friends' best efforts to warn him, he was unable to recognize Jordan for what he was, trouble. He thought it was all for the best, so he let her shenanigans continue because he loved her so much. Following their disagreement at the party, Jordan lost her cool and broke the SIM card in Alex's phone in two, making it impossible for him to talk to anyone. The couple then began fighting much more regularly. To the relief of everyone around him, he abruptly understood that his family and friends were correct, and he made the decision to break up. Things appear to have started to calm down for Alex after this. Gradually, everything returned to normal in his life. However, Jordan had different plans. Sadly, Alex and Jordan's split wouldn't last long, as is the case in many abusive relationships. Jordan broke the surprising news that she was expecting Alex's child at the family's home a few days after the separation. He informed Jordan that they couldn't be in a relationship because he couldn't stand her controlling ways and mind games, even though he pledged to provide financial support for her and their child. They hardly communicated over the next 12 months, but for Alex, it was the best possible time. On May 19, 2014, Jordan gave birth to a healthy child without any prior notice. Jordan brought the youngster over to the family's house so that everyone could meet him. Despite Alex's disapproval of Jordan's entrance into the home, his family believed that she had changed after becoming a mother, since she had stopped exhibiting the odd behavior they had seen in the past. However, Alex thought that the wounds were still too fresh and that he should be involved in this. Rather than have Jordan accompany him, he chose to have his close-knit granddad accompany him when he met his son for the first time. However, as you probably anticipated, Alex and Jordan soon resumed their time together as they took care of their son, and they made the decision to reconcile the following year. Everything seemed different this time. According to Alex, their relationship was at its best point ever, and Jordan appeared to have truly turned a new leaf. But shortly after, Jordan's family noticed additional concerning conduct, and Alex became irate once more when she questioned her about it. Alex was then informed by her that he had to decide between his family and her. Alex made the decision to move in with Jordan since he didn't want to be apart from his son. For the following 2 years, his family wouldn't see him again. The couple had relocated to Jordan's parents' home, but Jordan's domineering ways only got worse. Even though Alex wasn't that kind of person and never expressed interest in other people, she had him change his phone number and often accused him of cheating on her with other women. Additionally, she misrepresented to him that her mother had been notified by his family of his grandfather's passing. However, she later acknowledged that she had lied after observing how distraught he was. Who knows why she did this? Well, nobody knows. In spite of everything, the couple moved to Stewartby in 2016 after deciding to establish their own place. For a while, everything appeared to be going well. Jordan and Alex got along well, their son was doing well, and they were enjoying their new home. They made the decision to have another child because their connection appeared to be stronger than ever, and soon Jordan found herself pregnant once more. Even though everything was going well at the time, their house of cards was about to collapse, and Alex had no idea how terrifying and chaotic his life would become. Jordan was a college student at the time. She was in courses almost every day, but as the days went by, she started to worry that Alex might have been skulking around when she was away from home. It turned out that she was correct. However, Alex was slipping out to see his family rather than prowling around with other women. Jordan was furious when she learned about this. In order to keep a watch on him at all times, she made Alex attend all of her lessons from this point on. Alex reluctantly consented, unable to bear the idea of upending his already delicate family's foundation. Soon after, Jordan created a fictitious Facebook account in Alex's name. She then sent private messages to his friends in the months that followed, saying he didn't want to interact with them and hadn't truly thought of them as friends. Fortunately, they realized immediately and responded that they knew it was Jordan who was messaging them. As a result, they were removed from the phony profile. Additionally, she sent a fake message to his family posing as Alex, informing them that he preferred to be left alone and that he didn't want to communicate with them. Once more, it appears that the family was aware that Jordan, not Alex, was the sender of these texts. Alex's family decided to step in at this point since they had had enough. They were aware that the pair had moved to Stewartby, but even though they managed to locate Alex at his new address, they were met with resistance when they knocked. They had no choice but to depart because they believed Alex didn't want to see them. Jordan's behavior had gotten worse in the interim, and she had once had Alex consume the full packet of sleeping pills, which caused him to lose his memory for the remainder of the evening. He was completely unaware of what had happened when he finally awoke. That evening is still a bit of a blur to this day. A few days later, Jordan took her hairbrush and began beating Alex with it as they were driving. As a result, one of Alex's teeth broke off. Jordan did this without warning. Although she would subsequently acknowledge the attack, she insisted that she had never before abused him or prevented him from getting in touch with his relatives. That was essentially where the investigation into this tragedy stopped. But from here on out, things might only become much, much worse. On the nights that Alex had gone to sleep before Jordan, strikes to the head would frequently wake him up and leave him with scars. Unaware of what had happened during one of these attacks, Alex was shocked to learn that Jordan had attacked him with a hammer. Jordan would eventually confess to using a hammer to attack him when questioned by the police, but she strangely claimed that she never intended to cause him any harm. However, upon additional investigation, The authorities discovered that she had gone a step farther on a few occasions, brandishing a knife. Her reaction to this charge was even more perplexing. She admitted that she had attacked him with a knife, but she never poked him with it. She never just sliced him, she said, as though that would somehow make things better. It appears that the two acts were very distinct in her view, but in truth, Alex's life was always in jeopardy, no matter how events transpired in particular. Because Jordan occasionally denied him food, Alex had begun to dramatically lose weight by this point. This is typically the case when she didn't feel like cooking dinner because she wasn't hungry. It appears that she also stopped Alex from making dinner. She also began making Alex sleep on the floor and forbidding him from using their bed. Later on, she would lie blatantly and claim that Alex couldn't fit in their bed since she was sharing it with their infant. By now, Alex was aware that he was in trouble. He was physically declining without a doubt, but his judgment had become so impaired that he was at a loss for what to do. In a state of desperation, he reached out to his father in February 2017, after realizing he had no choice but to ask for assistance from his family. However, Alex requested him to leave when he got to the couple's residence, and all the lights were abruptly turned down, to which he refused. Instead, believing Jordan was preventing him from going outdoors, his father called the police. He was unaware of his own accuracy. It appears that Jordan had forbidden Alex from leaving the house at any time without her consent or company for weeks or months prior to this. He had to be in her direct line of sight at all times, without fail. Officers met with the couple when they arrived, informing Alex's father that the couple had only argued and that the matter had been settled. Though they acknowledged that Alex was observed limping, they said there wasn't much they could do save make sure the altercation was done. Alex's father was disappointed with the result and was forced to walk away empty-handed. Alex seemed to be desperate to end the relationship at this time, but Jordan's domineering actions had gotten so bad that he didn't know how to handle it or wake up from the nightmare he was living. Now he found himself a prisoner in his own house. Without Jordan's permission, he was unable to go, sleep, and felt as though he was breathing heavily. Unbelievably, though, the worst was still to come. Later on, Alex would remember that he and Jordan went to see a band play in Leeds one evening, and he had a great time. Not only was it his favorite band, but he was also having a great time and felt relieved that, if only for that one night, he wouldn't have to worry about being abused. However, his relief was short-lived. He was horrified to discover when he awoke the next morning in their hotel room that Jordan had been pouring boiling water down his back for no apparent reason. Later on, he would say that he had begun to scream in agony and was baffled by her actions. Jordan said that this was inaccurate when authorities questioned her about it later, precisely saying, "Never in Leeds, never." She had never poured boiling water on Alex while they were in Leeds. Jordan had previously bought a cheap lie detector, which she had instructed Alex to fasten to his hand. She interrogated him on a variety of topics while keeping a kettle of boiling water ready in case the machine detected that he was telling the truth. The situation was further exacerbated when Jordan announced shortly after that she was pregnant once more. Although most of us would shudder at the mere mention of it, Alex thought that having a child together would alter Jordan's behavior, but naturally this wasn't the case. After their second kid, a girl, was born in May 2017, Alex noticed a short-lived behavioral shift in her, but it didn't persist long. After the couple began fighting once more, their neighbors decided to contact the police one night because they could stand it no more. The caller would inform the 911 dispatcher that he had heard a man beg someone to stop hurting him and to get off of him. Therefore, he was positive that someone was being abused. Officers had to knock and shout multiple times before Jordan opened the door when they got to the scene. The first officer to arrive on the scene said that she appeared unperturbed and claimed coolly that there had been an incident where Alex had harmed himself. She also said that he had a history of self-harm, which was obviously false. However, when the officer questioned Alex about it, he said that it was, perhaps because he was afraid of getting attacked if he disagreed with her. Subsequently, it was revealed that Jordan had been abusing Alex with a bread knife. Alex attempted self-defense by shielding his hand from the wound, but in the process, he hurt his hand severely. After the police left, Alex went to a nearby hospital where he was stitched up. Since there was no evidence of a crime being committed, the police officers accepted the couple's statement that the injury was self-inflicted and were unable to take any further action. Because of the severity of his injury, Alex needed surgery. But before the procedure could take place, Jordan showed up and declared that Alex should go home. When the hospital personnel realized what was happening, they moved quickly to persuade him to stay, if only long enough to complete the required treatment. After that, Alex saw a consultant who questioned whether he was certain he wanted to go since he thought it would be dangerous. Alex gave the consultant his word that everything would be okay, and after that he left the hospital and went home with Jordan. He would later acknowledge that, at that very moment, he realized he had the opportunity to tell Jordan all that had happened to him, but he was afraid of the consequences the next time he was by himself with Jordan. A few days later, the same policeman who had previously responded to a domestic disturbance report went back to the residence.
Hello. How you doing, mate? Remember me? What's been going on today, mate? Have you been assaulted or anything like that today?
No assault, nothing. It's just arguing. We're just so stressed out.
Are you 100% sure, Alex?
Yes, I'm 100% sure.
I know you've said...
This time, he sat Alex down and inquired about whether he was being assaulted while telling Jordan to wait downstairs. However, Alex said that Jordan and he had just been fighting because they were both really stressed out. It's evident from the body cam film that the officer doesn't think Alex is telling the truth, and he chooses to remove Alex from the house. As they were in a secure setting where they couldn't be overheard, he asked Alex to finally disclose the truth as he took him to his police car. For a short while, Alex refused to change his story, but in the end he gave in and said that he had been abused by Jordan for years. However, he begged investigators to only consider reports from neighbors, because he didn't want Jordan to know that he had been the one to accuse her of the crime. When the officers arrived back at the residence, they told Jordan that she was being arrested for assault and would be brought to the police station to be questioned, where she would have the opportunity to provide her version of events. According to the officers' later report, Jordan believed incorrectly that she would only be permitted to leave the house once everything had been cleared up, and that she would be gone for around an hour. After that, Alex was brought back to the hospital, where it became clear how horrifying his injuries really were. Fluid had accumulated on his brain as a result of the head trauma he had suffered, and medical professionals warned him that he would have died in roughly 10 days if he hadn't received treatment at the time. Alex claimed in a later interview with investigators that he never struck Jordan in self-defense because he didn't want to harm her. He went on to say that he never reported the abuse because he thought it would end eventually and the relationship would work out. Following her police interrogation and admission of her abuse of Alex, Jordan faced 17 charges of grievous bodily harm and controlling or coercive behavior. After entering a guilty plea to 3 of the charges, she was found guilty in April 2018 and given 2 concurrent 7-year sentences. She was also found guilty of controlling or coercive behavior and given a 6-month sentence. She is the first woman to be found guilty of that crime in the United Kingdom. Alex went back in with his family after being discharged from the hospital. They were overjoyed to have him back and safe. However, Jordan would only serve 5 years of her sentence before being freed in 2023 because it was determined that she posed no threat to the community. She will never be permitted to get in touch with Alex again. He has subsequently moved on to become a soccer coach and an ambassador for the Mankind Initiative, a nonprofit that fights domestic abuse and also sponsors his football club. In an effort to encourage future victims to use any chance to escape a terrible circumstance like the one he endured, Alex has promised to utilize all of his resources to positively publicize the news of Jordan's abuse. Additionally, he has begun giving seminars at which he alerts people to the warning signals of domestic abuse. He has since said that he is developing coping mechanisms for the pain and memories of the assault against him. These days, his focus is on the life that lies ahead of him and building a bright future for his kids. Regarding Jordan, little is known about what transpired after her release. However, given that she is now forbidden from communicating with Alex in the future, I believe I can speak for everyone when I say that it doesn't really matter what happened to her. Let this be a lesson to all of us. You are worth a lot more than you usually give yourself credit for. Stories like this don't always have happy endings. We are all too smart to be mistreated, patronized, or physically attacked. It's never too early to leave a difficult environment, but it can always be too late.
A family. The intricate tapestry of souls, woven together by the threads of shared laughter, tears, and the relentless passage of time. In this story, the lives of the Lins and Zs were entwined by strands of achievement and envy inside the throbbing tapestry of familial ties, jealousy, and money. Come with us as we explore this thrilling story.
Good evening. It was a crime that left Sydney aghast. A family of 5 killed in their home in the middle of the night. 3.5...
It all started with the couple named Min Lin and Yun Lin. They met while attending college in Australia. Both are native Chinese who moved to Australia in search of better prospects and success. Following their college graduation, the pair relocated to a northern Australian suburb called Epping and gave birth to their first child, June Brenda Lin. She was born in August of 1994. Their second child, Henry, was born in June 1997, and their youngest, Terry, was born in 2000. The couple chose to start a company newsstand agency in the early 2000s. Their firm has been successful over the years, which rewarded them with a nice house, a nice car, and an opportunity for their children to go to private school. The couple are known as good, modest parents and great business owners that are not known to have any enemies. Overall, their lives in Australia were very much thriving and lived comfortably. There were even speculations that their business netted a total of $1 million a year. One day, the couple decided to invite their relatives from China to visit them. In the early 2000s, the first relatives that came to Australia were the parents of Min. Min's parents eventually helped the couple to take care of their children whenever they were away. Throughout the time, Min and Yun bought a small house for Min's parents for them to live independently. Fast forward in 2007, Min's younger sister Kathy Lin and her husband Robert Z immigrated to Australia as well. Robert, who was a successful ENT doctor in China, decided to change occupation and try the realms of entrepreneurship. They invested their savings to open up a business in Australia, but the business struggled and soon closed due to bankruptcy. However, Robert still tried other businesses like cafe and a snack store, but still failed due to the lack of experience in the field of business. After a few months, Robert and Kathy decided to move to North Epping in Australia, where Min and Yun Lin are living. Soon, Kathy found work, but Robert is still in a state of self-discovery, unsure of his future goals. Furthermore, the Lin and Z family are known also for their kinship and friendship, often went through family gatherings, unbeknownst to them that the last gathering of the two families would soon come. On the morning of July 18th, the shop of the Lin family mysteriously closed. Frequent customers who came to stop by the shop were left to wonder, since their store didn't have any signs of a letter why they were closed on that day. Moreover, customers became aware of the shop's unusual behavior and made multiple unsuccessful attempts to get in touch with the owner, Min. Others even attempted to call her sister Kathy to find out if Min was all right, because his brother generally makes plans in advance if he won't be able to manage the shop on a particular day. When Kathy received tens and hundreds of calls from his customers, she became startled and was also confused with the current situation. Following multiple unanswered calls, Kathy made the decision to visit Min and Yun's home. Soon after they arrived at the house, they saw that the homeowners were nowhere to be found, but the family car was still parked in the driveway, and the doors were left unlocked. Inside the house was eerily quiet. The house appeared undisturbed with no signs of forced entry. Kathy decided to call his brother Min. Seemingly, she heard the ringtone of his brother on the second floor of the house. Upon opening the bedroom door of the couple, Kathy screamed in horror from the sight she saw. After arriving, she was greeted with a room drenched in blood. Colors of the wall, including the ceiling, couldn't be seen since it was all covered with blood. The lifeless body of the couple, Min and Yun Lin, was mutilated in the bed. Right in front of the couple's room was the children's bedroom. 12-year-old Henry and 9-year-old Terry were brutally beaten to death with their bodies lying in each corner of the room. On the other hand, Brenda, the 15-year-old daughter, had fortunately been on a school trip and was away from the horrendous crime scene that had happened. Kathy immediately called the 911, hoping to save anyone they could. After the emergency services arrived, Robert decided to fetch Lin's parents, who lived 10 kilometers away from the crime scene. Emergency services think that this is one of the most tragic crime scenes Australia have ever seen. Every member of the Lin family was hit in the head, and investigators suggest the weapon used was a hammer. The blood spatters provided more evidence that the kids were awake and frantically tried to get out of the house. Interestingly, there were distinct tracks of patterns and bloody shoe prints all over the house. Though the brand is unknown, The shoe size, which is specifically a size 9.5 US, is obvious. Additionally, the lack of any discernible fingerprints leads investigators to believe that the murderer was wearing gloves. The investigators also were confused because the majority of the known people of the Lin family thought that the Lin family does not have any enemies, leading the officials to itch their heads as to who was to blame for these horrific acts. On the other hand, Brenda Lin, the eldest and now the sole survivor of the extensive, heard the tragedy news from social media, but refused to believe that it was her family that was involved in the scene. However, moments later, her aunt Kathy called her and revealed that it was indeed her family who was involved in the gruesome crime scene. Brenda was quickly flown back to Sydney, where Robert and Kathy are her new guardians due to the family's passing. Brenda became the heir to the substantial fortune of the family. However, due to the fact that she is still underage to manage all the assets of the family, her legal guardians Kathy and Robert are responsible for maintaining the business that the family left. Brenda's grandparents also offered their support and insisted on them being her primary guardian until she reached her appropriate age. However, Robert became aware of this and threatened legal action if the elderly relatives persisted to take that decision, also pointing out that they were too old and wasn't physically fit to care and nurture a teenager. After the temporary closure of the Lin's family shop, it reopened once again because of the new management under the Z family. It is also important to note that Robert had also reviewed the bank accounts of the Lin family and their other assets. Throughout the investigation, experts have also deeply investigated Lin's house for more details about the crime. Investigators suggest that the culprit has entered the house, either quietly or has a key accessed. The weapon that is believed that's been used in the crime was a hammer, and it could not also be seen around the area of the property, leaving experts to believe that they brought it with them. It was also obvious that the suspect came prepared, leaving no fingerprints behind, suggesting that he or she might have used gloves while doing the horrendous crime. Nonetheless, a lump sum of theories emerged while investigators were dealing with the crime. From a robbery gone wrong to local Chinese-affiliated mafia members. Due to the area's reputation with such crime, it was not far to believe that it was the case. Although at this point there were still no solid leads or evidence to what really happened to the Lin family. Coincidentally, the power line of the house was cut during the night before the crime happened, suggesting that the culprit knew where the power breaker was. Doing such a horrible crime in total darkness led the officials to believe that the suspect had already been inside the house before, since he or she was strangely familiar with the layout of the property. Continuing with the investigation, a crucial clue rose while investigators reviewed the recordings of the call of Kathy to the emergency services. While officials went back to review Kathy's call, they noticed that at the very end of the call, Kathy mentioned something to her husband, Robert, in Cantonese. It turned out that Kathy was begging his husband, Robert, to not leave her all alone in the house, because strangely enough, Robert decided to fetch Min's parents on his own. Authorities believed that Robert had committed an unusual act by abandoning his own wife, putting her in danger since the murderer may still be around, yet he refused to stay and left. This piqued the officials' attention and made Robert Z the primary suspect. A few months later, Brenda, the sole survivor of the family, revealed to the authorities that his dad, Min, had given Robert a spare key to the house in case of some circumstances. It was also claimed that, although Robert had a degree in the field of medical, he nonetheless had no background of stable work in becoming an ENT doctor. In short, he faked his identity of being a doctor. Rumor also has it that he migrated to Australia to avoid charges of bribery in his homeland China. For the authorities, Robert's plan was starting to become rather evident. He was motivated by his wife's family's money, homes, and profitable company, and feels envious of their more prosperous and accomplished relatives. But because there wasn't enough solid evidence against Robert, the police couldn't yet make an arrest against him. Few weeks later, the investigation team was permitted to install hidden cameras into the Z's residences in hopes of putting an end to this misery. Unexpectedly, Kathy was interrogated again by one of investigators. She mentioned that a few years back, Robert purchased 2 pairs of sneakers. The first pair was worn out by him, while the other pair was kept intact at their house. Notably, Robert wore size 9.5, the same size as the killer's. Consequently, he was seen in one of the hidden cameras destroying the sneaker box that was mentioned by Kathy. The thread pattern of the shoes and a small stain of blood on the sole shows the same exact ones as the killer, matching the shoes that Robert had thrown. This evidence was enough for the officials to make a warrant and arrest the perpetrator. In May of 2011, 2 years after the horrendous crime, the Lin family was slowly being brought to justice. However, Robert repeatedly denied his involvement in the crime, stating that the blood was his and that he couldn't do such a crime. While awaiting trial in the prison, he began confessing his dreadful deeds to some inmates that he shared a cell with. Another source testified during Robert's trial in June 2016 that Robert had admitted to having a fixation with Brenda, Min's eldest child. After Brenda's parents passed away, Robert and Kathy took on the role of primary guardians for her. After being questioned, Brenda eventually admitted that Robert had forced her into a sexual connection. Fearing for her life, she decided to remain silent for years until she was questioned by the police. After all of the allegations and information against Robert Z., he was ultimately found guilty of all of them. He was given 5 life sentences, 1 for each fatal crime, with no chance of parole. The judge also denied all of his appeals after that. Hey, thanks for sticking with us today. Check out this other thrilling videos for you to watch, and while you're at it, hit that subscribe and like button, and let us know down below your thoughts on today's case. Until then, take care.